Hello and welcome. Settle in. Find your most comfortable spot, perhaps with a warm drink beside you. Tonight, we journey back to a time when life, for many, was a landscape of quiet aches and persistent discomforts. A time when the hurried pace of modern life had yet to fully grasp hold. But illness and pain were constant companions. Imagine, if you will, the gentle flicker of a gas lamp in a Victorian parlour, illuminating dust motes dancing in the still air. Outside, the distant rumble of a carriage on cobblestones, or perhaps the soft sigh of the wind through ancient trees. In such moments of quietude, a persistent headache might throb, a chronic cough might catch, or the simple fatigue of daily existence might weigh heavily upon the spirit. In these circumstances, solace was often sought in small, familiar bottles, nestled quietly amongst other household remedies. Tonight, we will explore one such companion, laudanum. But not, as perhaps you might expect, through a lens of dramatic addiction or sensational decline. Instead, we will observe its presence as it was often experienced by countless individuals. A gentle comforter, a quiet balm woven into the fabric of everyday life. A substance often taken not for dramatic escape, but for mild relief, to soothe a troubled mind, or to simply invite a moment of quiet repose. We will slow our pace, allowing the story to unfold like a forgotten tapestry. We will examine its origins, its simple preparation, and its surprisingly pervasive presence, not as a symbol of Victorian excess, but as a silent, often respected element of personal well-being. So, let us begin our gentle exploration into the quiet history of laudanum, the unassuming ally in a world of subtle pains. To truly understand laudanum, we must first trace its lineage back to its most ancient and graceful ancestor, the opium popper, a flower of exquisite beauty, its petals a delicate whisper of crimson, white, or lilac, holding within its swelling seed pod a secret known to humanity for millennia. Imagine ancient fields, bathed in the warmth of the sun, where these poppies swayed gently in the breeze. From their milky sap, gathered with careful hands, came opium, a substance that even in antiquity was recognized for its profound ability to lull pain and invite sleep. Our journey through history reveals its presence in the earliest medical texts. The Sumerians, over 5,000 years ago, referred to it as the joy plant. The ancient Egyptians utilized it in their remedies, understanding its capacity to quiet the body and soothe the mind. Greek physicians, like Hippocrates himself, prescribed it for various ailments, from dysentery to melancholy. It was a tool in the earliest apothecaries, a common ingredient in balms and draughts, a quiet companion to human suffering through the ages. The Silk Road, that ancient network of trade routes, carried not only spices and silks, but also the knowledge and substance of opium across continents. It entered the Islamic world, where its medicinal properties were further studied and documented, often prepared into various forms for therapeutic use. It was a substance understood, respected, and often carefully administered, its powers both revered and, at times, gently feared. It is crucial to understand that for much of its history, opium was seen primarily as a medicinal tool. Its recreational use, while not entirely absent, was overshadowed by its practical application in alleviating suffering. It was a natural product, widely available, and for centuries, often the most effective analgesic and sedative known to humankind. This long, unbroken lineage of acceptance and utility provides the silent backdrop against which laudanum would eventually emerge, not as a radical new drug, but as a refined, more manageable form of an ancient, gentle ally. Our story now drifts forward in time to the 16th century and introduces a figure whose name still echoes through the corridors of medical history. Philippus Aureolus, Theophrastus Bombastus von Hohenheim, better known to us as Paracelsus, a man of formidable intellect, unconventional methods, and a restless spirit. Paracelsus was a physician, alchemist, and philosopher who challenged the medical orthodoxies of his day. He believed in observation, experience, and the practical application of remedies. And it was Paracelsus who is largely credited with creating a refined, more palatable form of opium, a preparation he christened laudanum. The name itself, derived from the Latin laudare, meaning to praise, or laudanum, meaning praiseworthy substance, speaks to his profound respect for its therapeutic property. Prior to Paracelsus, opium was often ingested in its raw, less refined forms, or combined with various other, sometimes questionable ingredients. Paracelsus's innovation lay in creating a tincture, a solution made by dissolving a substance in alcohol. This method offered several distinct advantages. Firstly, alcohol acted as an excellent solvent, extracting the active compounds of opium more efficiently and consistently. This meant a more predictable potency, a crucial aspect for any medicine. Secondly, the alcoholic solution preserved the opium, making it less prone to spoilage and thus extending its shelf life, a significant practical benefit in an era without modern refrigeration. And thirdly, the liquid form allowed for easier and more precise dosing, critical improvement over crude opium preparations. While precise modern dosage was still centuries away, it was a step towards greater control. Paracelsus's original laudanum was reportedly a complex concoction, not just opium in alcohol, but also containing other ingredients like crushed pearls, musk, and amber. Over time, however, the recipe simplified, becoming primarily a hydroalcoholic extract of opium. This simpler yet potent form would become the ubiquitous laudanum of the later centuries. It was a significant step in the history of medicine, transforming a raw plant product into a more manageable, standardized, and effective therapeutic agent. Paracelsus saw it as a divine gift, a powerful tool for alleviating suffering, bringing forth quiet rest and gentle relief. His vision paved the way for laudanum's widespread acceptance, preparing it for its eventual, deeply ingrained role in the everyday lives of millions. As we glide into the 19th century, the Victorian era truly marks laudanum's golden age. It was a time of immense social and industrial change, but also a period where medical science was still in its relative infancy. Effective pain relief was scarce, and surgical procedures were often agonizing experiences. For conditions ranging from toothache to tuberculosis, from menstrual cramps to cholera, laudanum emerged as a ubiquitous and often highly valued remedy. Imagine a typical Victorian home. In the medicine cabinet, or perhaps simply on a shelf in the pantry, beside salves and herbal remedies, stood a small bottle of laudanum. It was not hidden away in shame or secrecy, but openly displayed, a common household staple, much like aspirin or cough syrup might be today. Its accessibility was remarkable. Laudanum could be purchased from apothecaries, grocers, and even general stores. No prescription was required. It was affordable, often cheaper than a pint of beer, making it available to all social classes, from the wealthy lady in her manor to the struggling factory worker. For many women, particularly, laudanum offered a quiet reprieve from the relentless physical demands of Victorian life, the pains of childbirth, the constant cycle of menstruation, the frequent illnesses of young children, and the sheer exhaustion of managing a household. It was a gentle hand to quiet a screaming infant, a soft whisper to lull a sleepless night, a quiet comfort for persistent aches. The doses administered were often quite small, aimed not at intoxication, but at gentle palliation. A few drops in a glass of water, a teaspoonful to quiet a cough, or a small dose to ease the discomfort of a headache. The intent was often to achieve a mild sedative effect, allowing the body to rest and recover, or simply to take the edge off persistent pain. Authors of the era, such as Elizabeth Gaskell and Charles Dickens, mention its use in their novels, often without judgment, reflecting its everyday integration. It was a silent presence, a gentle helper, widely accepted and understood. This widespread and open use painted a picture of laudanum not as a societal scourge, but as a practical, accessible solution to the very real and pervasive problem of pain and discomfort in a world without modern pharmaceuticals. It was a lullaby in a bottle, a quiet promise of a few hours of gentle sleep or softened sensation. Let us now delve into the practicalities, the quiet rituals surrounding the administration and experience of laudanum. It wasn't always a dramatic event, but rather often a part of the domestic routine, a small gesture towards comfort and well-being. Imagine a woman in her private chamber, perhaps after a long day of household duties or nursing a sick child. The air is still, save for the crackling of a low fire. From a small dark glass bottle, she carefully measures a few drops into a spoon, perhaps a specific, small dose described in a household remedy book or passed down through family knowledge. These drops might then be diluted in a glass of water, or perhaps a warm tisane, a gentle herbal tea, further enhancing the soothing effect. The taste of laudanum itself was distinctive, bitter, with the underlying earthy notes of opium and the sharpness of alcohol. To mask this, it was often mixed with other substances. Some might add it to sherry, port, or even a simple syrup to make it more palatable, especially for children. The act of preparation was part of the ritual, a mindful moment before the promised relief. Once consumed, the effects would begin to manifest gradually, gently. Not a sudden jolt, but a slow unfolding sense of calm. The sharp edges of pain would soften. Thoughts that once raced would begin to slow, and a gentle drowsiness would often descend. It was a sensation of quiet repose, a loosening of tension, a softening of the world's demands. For those suffering from chronic pain, rheumatism, neuralgia, or the persistent cough of consumption, laudanum offered not a cure, but a respite. It allowed them moments, hours, or even days of reduced suffering, enabling them to eat, sleep, and sometimes even engage in light activities. For the insomniac, it was the promise of a quiet night, a peaceful slumber undisturbed by anxieties or physical discomfort. It was taken by mothers to soothe fussy babies, by workers to dull the aches of strenuous labor, by ladies seeking relief from female complaints, and by the elderly seeking solace from the inevitable pains of age. The widespread understanding and acceptance meant that its use was often discussed openly, or at least without the veil of secrecy that would later descend upon such substances. It was a pragmatic choice, a widely available and effective tool in a medical landscape where options were limited. The quiet rituals of its use, from preparation to the slow embrace of its effects, were woven into the tapestry of daily existence, a constant, gentle hum beneath the surface of Victorian life. As the Victorian era matured and transitioned into the early 20th century, the perception of laudanum, and opium in general, began to slowly but inexorably shift. This wasn't a sudden dramatic change, but rather a gradual evolution, influenced by a confluence of factors: burgeoning medical understanding, social reforms, and growing concerns about public health. Initially, as we've discussed, laudanum was largely seen as a beneficial and necessary medicine. Advertisements praised its efficacy and reputable physicians prescribed it. However, the very qualities that made it so effective, its ability to relieve pain and induce euphoria, also carried the inherent risk of dependence. While many used it responsibly in small palliative doses, a significant number did develop a physical reliance. Early concerns about opium habits were often expressed more as a moral failing or a personal weakness rather than a medical addiction. Yet, as its widespread use continued, the scale of dependence became more apparent, particularly among the working classes and in certain demographic groups. The rise of the temperance movement, advocating against alcohol consumption, indirectly contributed to a scrutinization of other psychoactive substances. Slowly, the focus began to shift from laudanum's therapeutic benefits to its potential for harm. Doctors, armed with new scientific understanding, started to differentiate more clearly between responsible medicinal use and what they increasingly termed addiction. Laws and regulations, initially sparse, began to tighten. The Pharmacy Act of 1868 in Britain, for example, started to restrict the sale of poisons, including opium, to registered chemists and druggists, though laudanum itself remained easily accessible for some time. The turn of the century brought more significant changes. The International Opium Conferences, starting in Shanghai in 1909, began a global dialogue about controlling narcotics. Influenced by geopolitical concerns and emerging public health awareness. By the early 20th century, with the isolation of morphine and other alkaloids and the development of new synthetic pain relievers, laudanum's once unchallenged supremacy began to wane. Its role as the primary analgesic and sedative slowly diminished, replaced by more targeted and scientifically understood medications. The calm, almost benign perception it once held started to be overshadowed by the growing understanding of its addictive properties. This shift wasn't a judgment on those who sought solace in its gentle embrace for so many years. Rather, it reflected a maturing medical science and a society grappling with the complex relationship between comfort, care, and the consequences of potent remedies. The quiet comfort it offered gave way to a newer, more cautious understanding, forever altering its place in the quiet routines of everyday life. As our quiet journey concludes, we leave the Victorian parlour and the fields of poppies, carrying with us a deeper understanding of laudanum's place in history. It was not merely a drug in the sensational sense, but for countless individuals, a common, often revered companion in the face of pain and distress. We have explored its ancient lineage, its scientific refinement by Paracelsus, its ubiquitous presence in Victorian homes, and the intimate, often understated rituals of its use. We have observed its slow transition from a universal panacea to a substance viewed with increasing caution, a reflection of evolving medical knowledge and societal norms. The story of laudanum is a testament to humanity's enduring quest for comfort and relief, a quiet echo from a time when gentle palliatives were often the only solace available. It reminds us that history is not always filled with grand pronouncements and dramatic events, but also with the quiet struggles of everyday people, seeking simple remedies for common afflictions. May this gentle recounting bring you a moment of peace, a quiet reflection on the subtle complexities of the past. As the ambient sounds softly fade, may your mind be calm and your thoughts drift gently towards rest. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the quiet archives of history.